Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we dive into the powerful journey of Mark Miller, who lost his father at just 2 years old. Raised in a single parent home with a mother battling depression, Mark learned firsthand the struggles of growing up without the emotional support. But instead of letting pain define him, Mark turned it into purpose. He created the Love Notes app, a digital time capsule for parents to capture love and memories that last beyond life itself. He also shares his visionary idea for a spirit park, a reimagined cemetery where legacy and connection live on. By the end of this episode, you'll discover new ways to leave an emotional legacy for your children, rethink how we process grief, and gain inspiration for building stronger family connections. Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Before we start the next conversation, I want to invite you to check out my amazing book, The Gift Inside, a powerful guide for healing your body, mind, and soul. Reclaim your strengths and awaken your true potential. Whether you are navigating heartbreak or simply seeking deeper fulfillment, this book offers the tools to turn your struggles into triumphs. It is time to unlock the gift within you. Available now on Amazon, or you can check it out on my website www.irina.com. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Mark Miller. He is an award-winning passive house architect and entrepreneur, a father of two amazing young adults. When he started his family at 36, he realized this was the same age his own father died of a sudden heart attack. He was only 2. This forced Mark for him to ask himself, should I too pass early in life? How do I keep loving and supporting my children from the other side? Since then, he has been on a mission to reimagine cemetery and has developed an app that captures love to keep hearts connected now and forever. And he also grew up in a single parent home. Welcome, Mark. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here and happy to chat with you.
Yeah, so please share with us your perspectives growing up in a single parent home. What worked, what didn't, what do you wish was done differently?
Yeah, it seriously, shaped who I am today. The story was my father had died of a sudden heart attack. My mother had 2 children. My brother was 4. I was 2. My sister was 1 month away from being born when he passed, so horribly traumatic for my mother. I was too young to remember the loss at 2, but my brother, who was 4, definitely has vivid memories of his relationship with our father, and he had a tougher time growing up, I think, because of that impact. And then what I've come to realize is the effect the loss had on my mother, because she had to just pick up 3 kids and keep moving forward. She didn't have time to stop and grieve properly. And so what I've come to believe is, if you're a person who can't grieve, that grief can turn into depression. And so she struggled with depression the rest of her life. To hospitalize her 4 times over the course of the decades together. Things had gotten so bad that she needed serious professional help, and she needed to be somewhere where she couldn't hurt herself. So now that I'm, an adult looking back at my childhood, I didn't know at the time, that my mother was depressed. I have felt that I didn't get the amount of closeness that a child hopes to have with their parent. I think my mother was using all of her capacity just to get through each day with 3 kids on her own, working a full-time job, getting us to school, all of these things. It was beyond her comfortable capacity. And so there was very little time left to sit on the couch, embracing each other, talking personally and on some, emotional levels. And so the end result is I felt that I grew up kind of alone, quite isolated. I felt I had to go through all the major challenges of my life by myself. I didn't have the wisdom and support and you can do this, Mark, from my single parent, because she just wasn't available, I think, for those nuances. And I didn't have a father figure, obviously, because my father had passed, and I really didn't have an uncle or, someone or a neighbor to kind of step up and fill in that father role model for me. So I really have been kind of figuring it out on my own as I've gone through my stages of life. My mother also was quite fearful. So whenever I wanted to do something new and challenging, if it was selling magazine subscriptions, to win some prizes that was on the back of a comic book, I wouldn't get her support saying, give it a shot. You got nothing to lose. I would get, oh, that's not going to work. Don't try that. I would get her fears projected on me. And unfortunately, that was not good for a growing child, trying to be expansive. So rather than approaching life's challenges with courage, I was being modeled that everything's fearful and don't try to push yourself. Don't try this, don't try that. And that is not who I am, personally. That's not my soul. So there was conflict in those, both of our perspectives being different. And so that caused me not to want to share things with my mother. I think this is horrible. And so this added to my isolation, my feeling of loneliness. I couldn't come to my mother with my challenges because I knew all I was going to get was going to be more of her fear. So I guess I'm encouraging all the mothers out there, be conscious of how you are modeling things for your child. Be enthusiastic and supportive. Let your child make mistakes. Let them fall and bruise their knees. Let them crash their bicycles. Let them try things and fail. This is one thing I can confirm as an architect, as being a designer, is you don't just try once and then if it doesn't work, you give up. Design is a series of iterations. So you try one thing and then you keep the good parts you like and you leave to the side the parts you don't like, and then you're on to iteration number 2. And you polish it up and make it better. And again, now things maybe 75% are great and 25% aren't good. So now I'm going to do iteration 3, and all of a sudden everything's at 100%. You have to go through this process. So letting your child fail is great, because failure is just part of the process of getting to success. And I can't think of a better message that a parent could give to their child than honoring them trying and saying, great, that was iteration number 1. Now get back up there and try it again. We got to get to 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 before you're going to get it. If you're learning to ride a unicycle, you're not going to get it the first time. You're going to keep falling and crashing, but this is part of the process. So if you could embrace those steps to success and not even call them failures, just call them attempts, practice. I'm practicing, I'm trying. And little by little, you're going to get there. So that would be a lovely message for everybody to take with them today, which, again, I didn't have, and it really affected me. It caused me to also, this is coming to mind now, I've always been reluctant to be in a mentor-mentee relationship. So when I went to architecture school, and most of my classmates looked forward to the professor pulling up a stool and sitting next to them and talking about the drawings they're working on, and getting feedback to help you grow and learn. I didn't look forward to it. It was uncomfortable for me to be vulnerable, to let somebody give me feedback in a constructive way, that I didn't search out those opportunities. I resisted those opportunities, which in hindsight was not the proper approach. Obviously, the more mentorship one gets, the more their learning curve is vertical. And so this is another thing I can share. Not having a close relationship with my mother in that perspective, not having a close relationship with a father who wasn't there, later in life came to this showed up in how I felt with relationships with adults and people, authority or adults or, mentor figures. And I see the same thing in my son. He usually doesn't embrace that. Maybe that's just through the DNA, but I'm always encouraging him, hey, seek out teachers. He spent a semester in Japan. So I'm like, go find a teacher to teach you Japanese drumming or martial arts or basket weaving, anything, but just to have a relationship with a masterful person, to be in their presence and company. You're going to learn something about the craft and you're going to learn something about life. And these are valuable interactions. And I kind of shielded myself from valuable interactions for a good part of my life until more of adulthood, when I became aware of what I was doing. And I guess the biggest lesson I learned is allow yourself to be vulnerable. When you're completely vulnerable, that's where the most personal growth can happen for you internally. And I'm sure you'll back me up on that statement.
Totally.
Yeah, totally. So, I'll share that I've done some what we call men's work. I've gone on some weekend retreats with just other men where we had a chance to unplug from daily life and just focus in on our personal selves. And as we like to say, we kind of looked in our backpack, the pack that we've been carrying all of our junk with us for our whole lives, and look to see what's inside that backpack. And there's a lot of things that are holding us down and keeping us back from growing or causing triggers in how we react to certain people and situations. These are all from our childhood, I've come to learn. And so by having a weekend to look at these things, we can really grow, help our personal growth. And again, that big lesson of allowing yourself to be vulnerable and honest really sets you up for a lot of personal growth.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, your perspectives. And yes, it was difficult for your mother, I guess, to keep everything, like you said, with 3 kids and handling the day-to-day.
Yeah.
I recently heard of kind of masked depression, where you put a brave face out to the world, you put on a smile, you do the things, but inside you could be falling down. And because everybody is relying on you to be strong, to be that leader, to be that person.
Yes.
You don't allow yourself to feel the feelings. You don't allow yourself to to process all of that, because you got to keep that straight face because other people are relying on you.
Those emotions don't get to be communicated. And so if they stay inside, it's like mold, it's bad, the cancer, it's like bad things grow if you can't share and get that out. And, and it's interesting because I see a shift in older bosses, in the working world who model running a business that way, where they're the professional and they never show that they make mistakes and they're always the best. But there's a new, younger modeling of running business where the leaders are allowing themselves to share their vulnerabilities. They're sharing with their teams when they make mistakes, and they express how they've learned from those mistakes. And I'm hearing from many people that they appreciate knowing that their boss could be vulnerable, and it sets up a better relationship between employees and employers, and it just feels much healthier, in a mental health and personal growth context. So I totally agree with what you're saying about that.
Yeah. What about any positive things that happen?
Positive things. I have to give my mom a lot of credit for many things. She did make sure that we had some wonderful traditions. I grew up in a Jewish household. And so my mother, between work and taking care of meals and getting us to bed and to the school bus on time, she found time to run out to the store and get us nice presents. 3 kids. She's buying for 3 kids lovely Hanukkahs every year. We would go to friends and families' houses for the high holidays and Passover. And, we had nice birthday parties with all the neighborhood kids coming to our house, and birthday cakes and gifts and happiness and all that kind of stuff. So she took us to the beach all the time. And, as I'm telling you, more and more is coming into my head. So thank you for the question. One thing she did, I live here in Chicago. We have a lot of great culture, as you do in New York. And so she signed us up for a subscription to the Goodman Theater. They had a children's theater program. So I think once a month or once every other month they would have a new Alice in Wonderland or, some of the famous plays they would do, but directed more for children, a children's audience. And that was really culturally enriching, to see all the costumes and the music, the live music and the performances, really fanned the flame of our own creativity. And, all of us kids played musical instruments. I got involved in making sets for my kids' school's theater productions. I play in a band. I'd like to do artistic projects. So, I have to give her a lot of credit for making opportunities to kind of fan our creativity and expose us to theater and music and all those wonderful cultural things. We also had a great tradition on Hanukkah. She would take us downtown, which was about a 45-minute train ride. And we would always go to the front train so we can look down the tracks. And the train would eventually go into the subway, and we'd see the perspective of being in the front of the train. And we'd have a lovely meal at a fancy restaurant that was in Marshall Fields, which was like your Macy's, big department store. And they'd have the big Christmas tree setups and the displays in the windows at the sidewalk with all the moving puppets and the storytelling of how they would, do up all the holiday windows along the big shopping venues in downtown Chicago. And I do that today with my kids. So she set up some really nice traditions that I think is critical for all parents to do. The more traditions we do, the better. One of them that really helped me with my son, again, growing up without a father, not having a father modeled traditions to do, with a son. There is a father-son weekend that happens about an hour drive out of Chicago. And for many years, while my son was in middle school and high school, we would go. We'd unplug from our daily life, and we'd be there with 45 other dads and sons. And we would do a lot of meaningful ritual together to help our relationship and our bonding. And then there'd be a time during the weekend where there'd be 2 different campfires separate from each other, and the dads would all circle up at one campfire, and the sons would circle up at another campfire. And it was an opportunity for people to ask any kind of question that they had to the group and get some support. Like, oh, my dad's really annoying me all the time because he does this. And then you'd get some advice from some of the older sons about how they handle that. And then in the dad's circle, they would say, oh, my son kind of drives me crazy when he does this, or I'm really worried because he's not applying himself for his homework. And I'm worried he's, not going to get into a great school. And then you get some advice from the older dads who have gone through some of these things already. And so that was wonderful place to be vulnerable and a place to establish a tradition that we both look forward to every summer. So traditions are great for single parents to make sure you have enough. And maybe I'm going to leave one other tidbit that's my favorite advice to new parents, especially single parents. Your approach to parenting should be, what do you want to hear your child tell their children 40, 50 years from now? What are the stories you want them to say? My dad used to take me fishing to Colorado every summer. We'd rent a boat and we'd get snacks and we would be on a boat all afternoon, and I just love, we'd make a campfire and we'd cook up the fish that we caught. What are the stories you want to be proud of to hear that they're going to pass on to their kids of how great your time was together? I think if you think of things this way, you're going to be a great parent. You're going to plan those things and implement them into your days and weeks and years so that those stories are going to be really lovely and heartwarming. So that's one of my favorite pieces of advice to all the people I know who are like new parents or have a newborn. I say, approach it that way and you can't go wrong.
I love it. Yeah, creating those memories, because life is so fleeting, and when you shift your perspective in such a way, like what you want your kid to remember, then you kind of approach your living and parenting more intentionally than just let it pass you by. Especially when you start out, you probably feel very tired because sleepless nights, and you're adjusting to this new role of a parent. But shifting your mindset in such a way helps.
And you don't want your kid's story to be, my dad never came to my volleyball games. He was too busy working. The worst. I was at every volleyball game my kids had. I was at every music recital, every theatrical performance. Fortunately, I was self-employed, so I had flexibility to do that. There were a lot of corporate working parents who worked downtown, couldn't leave at 5 o'clock or earlier to make it to the performance on time. And they, once you miss those, they're gone. And our kids are only in those years, for a small time. So I can't express enough how important it is to be there. That's another thing I can say. My mother didn't come to a lot of my performances. She did when I was young. She came to some baseball games and stuff. But it got to a point where I think she was just so exhausted trying to go to 3 different kids' worth of events, she just started not doing it. And I'll tell you, as a kid, it's much more enjoyable when someone's in the audience watching you than doing your performance without anyone there to appreciate you. So this is important. This is important.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So how did your upbringing or influence now the creation of this amazing app, the Laugh Club app, letting parents to share those amazing memories?
Yes, it came out of 2 things, I guess. Necessity being one, and then just me as a person, wanting to be a better parent and fill in the missing parenting relationships that I couldn't fully get just because of my situation growing up with my mother. And wanted to do, pass it forward and do it better for the next generation, for my kids. So, as you said in the intro, I was 36 when I had my daughter Zoe. We had our first child, and that's when my father passed away. And so I was literally fearful that whole year of when she was born that I could pass. And it forced me to think about, okay, this could really happen. If I die, how do I keep loving and supporting my beautiful child for the rest of her life? I didn't get that support from my father. He wasn't able to put things in place to prepare, except maybe a life insurance policy, which helps financially, but not emotionally or spiritually. So how can I prepare to emotionally and spiritually support my child from heaven? And so I'm thinking about this, and so the first question is, well, where is the place in our society where the living are supposed to come and meet with the dead so that they can interact and talk or get a hug or have some meaningful connection? In the place our society says one can do that is in a cemetery. And so I'm an architect, so I look at environments very differently than the average person. I design environments with an intention. And so I look at the intention of our Western cemeteries and I go, I don't see how the design is really helping this loving connection happen. It's a grassy field full of tombstones, and, how does the human form even interact with the tombstone? All I can do is I could bring cut flowers and I could leave it on the tombstone and I can stand and look at the tombstone, but it's not helping me connect. There's not even a bench to sit on. And the bench would say, hey, you're welcome to stay as long as you need and talk to your loved one. We're happy you're here. Stay as long as you need. No. So as a designer, I'm saying, no. The design is not helping here. And when I talk to my friends, I say, hey, when's the last time you went to visit your grandpa's grave? Well, I don't like going to cemeteries. They kind of creep me out. I don't like how cemeteries feel. And so if this is our designated place to come and connect, and people are freaked out by the place to connect, then people aren't connecting. And this is bad for our culture's relationship with death. And I'll be the first to tell you, I think America's culture and relationship with death is not that good. I was in Japan last summer, and I got to experience a Japanese cemetery. Now, in a Japanese cemetery, they have these little kiosks all over that have candles and incense and lighters. And so you can light a candle and light some incense and place it on your loved one's tombstone. There are many places to sit. There are gardeners' watering cans all around. And plants that need to be planted. So you can grab a plant and some water and you can go over to your gravesite and you can make it even more beautiful. You can do something. You can do a ritual to show love to your deceased, loved one that you came to visit. So I always say love is a verb. And so you can't do much verbing in traditional Western cemeteries, but you can do a lot of verbing in a Japanese cemetery. So I think this is what we need to do to upgrade our cemeteries in America, is we have to provide a design that will allow people to do things to show love and care to our loved ones. So I'm working on that. That's a whole nother conversation. I'm working on a new design for a memorial park that I call a spirit park that will have all these new things that it needs that it doesn't have today. But that's where Love Notes started, is realizing that cemeteries aren't a good way for the living and dead to connect. And so I was talking to a cousin one day about my spirit park idea, and he said, Mark, I love it. Great idea. We need it, but that's like a 10-year process to go from drawings on paper to an actual manifested, beautiful memorial park. Is there something you can do to get out into the world a little bit quicker? And so that's when Love Notes came about. Love Notes is the same idea, but in an app form. And so the idea is the app is helping you capture love and put it in a time capsule in the cloud so that that love is always there for your children to tap into. Now, while you're alive, let's say your child goes off to overnight camp and they're feeling lonely, somewhere in that week, they could go into the app and they can look at video or photos or hear your dad's voice saying something lovely about you and feel the connection and the warmth and, feel comforted and go on with the rest of the week of camp away. So now, more importantly, when we do pass, all those gems are there. And so I'll give you an example. My stepfather passed away a couple years ago, pancreatic cancer. And over that first year after his passing, when I would call my mom to check in and say hi, if she wasn't home, I would hear the voice message on their answering machine, and it was my stepfather's voice. Even though he was dead, just hearing his words, hearing his voice, instantly made me connect to him in a very positive way. I had warm feelings in my body just hearing his voice. So with the Love Notes app, hearing your parents' voice after they're gone is a way to reconnect with them in a very positive way. I think better than you're going to feel in a cemetery just looking at a tombstone. And so this is an upgraded an upgraded way to connect the living to the dead, and also a great way to honor traditions by archiving our traditions, by archiving our son's winning soccer goal he made to win the conference championship. If I have a video of that, and then I could leave a voice message after the video to tell my son or daughter how proud I was of them for kicking that winning goal, and wow, that was, one of the best things I saw my whole life, and I couldn't be more proud of you. Like those words are what every child wants to hear from their parent. Praise is one method of feeling love, and I think all of us kids wait to hear that from our parents. And we can see the downside of children not getting that even as adults. They're still trying to get their parents' approval. And, at some point, sometimes we have to realize we're never going to get that from our parents. We need to move on and stop trying so hard to get it, and, just find satisfaction in other ways. But as young parents, knowing this, being conscious of how important praise is, the app is helping us remember to do that, to archive it, and then it's always going to be there for your kids. So you're building up this huge repository of loving moments, expressions of love, and that's what the app's doing. It's trying to capture that and hold it. Decades ago, we would do this in an analog fashion. They would call these memory boxes, and we'd literally have a shoebox, and your parents would put in baby photos and maybe clippings of your hair when you were young, and over the years, your first missing tooth, your baby tooth, would go in the box, and then, when you were an adult, you would get this from them before they passed, and you'd have all these memories that warmed your heart to re-experience them. But now we do everything on our phones. We're a digital society now. So how do we get the same emotional and spiritual benefits in the digital age? And so now Love Notes is our digital memory box. And so, that is the big mission and intention behind the app, is to help connect the living and the dead while we're conscious of it as parents today. And now in the future, I'll share with you, which is exciting for me, in a spirit park, there will be kiosks, little pods that you could open a door and go into, and you'll see a TV screen in front of you. And you'll be able to pull up your Love Notes account, and you'll be able to have your parent watch a video of your parent leaving you a Love Note message that was maybe intended for a wedding they couldn't attend because they happened to pass early in life. So you can use the app as a way to make all these meaningful communications to your kids, just in case, something tragic happens to you, or, you get a terminal illness somewhere in life, and you end up leaving earlier than anyone wanted. But it happens every day. If we asked your audience to raise a hand if you know someone with cancer right now, everybody would raise their hand. So this is reality. This is today's reality. So the app is all about being prepared should something happen. Like I needed to be at 36. I needed to be prepared. I still need to be prepared today. Who knows what's going to happen to me? And now with the Love Notes app, I can help feel comfort that I can support my children from heaven with the help of the app. So that's really what it's all about.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And you make a good point, how they urge you to always get life insurance or some death insurance. I feel like the Love Note is this emotional insurance that we don't think about, that we can prepare ourselves by creating this amazing library of memories that can uplift, inspire, and hold a space when you are grieving or when you are feeling down, when you don't feel like you are good enough, to have that repository always available on demand. So awesome. Is this app already live and available, and people can check out?
It's live and available for iPhone users on the Apple platform. And in a couple of weeks, the Android version will be ready for public use. There's still some polishing we're doing on the coding right now. So if you go to the App Store and you search with these 4 words, Love Notes Time Capsule, you will get to the right page and you can download the app and you can try it for free for a week, and we'll send you some newsletters with tutorials on how to make a text love note, audio love note, photo love note, and a video love note, the 4 types to store. Play around with it, make one for your kids, see how it feels to do it, and if you like it, join up. It's a monthly subscription for the price of a cup of coffee. It's nothing. And start building your time capsule for your kids. Or if you have pets, it's great with pets. You know, pets are just other members of our family, and people have very deep connections with their pets. There are pet cemeteries all around the world. So why not continue that relationship? You know, should your pet go, you'll always have things to tap into, videos of them being happy running down the beach, videos with them playing with their best neighbor pets. So there's a bunch of ways to use it. The app's great for aunts and uncles. The app's great for grandparents. The app's also especially important, talking about life insurance, for parents who are in dangerous professions. So I'm talking about police officers, I'm talking about firefighters, I'm talking about parents who are in the military. We don't know if they get deployed overseas, if they're going to come back. There are many, many who don't. So again, if you're a parent in one of these situations, use the app as a life insurance policy to build up these love and, build up your time capsule with loving intention that will be there for your kids should, God forbid, something happen to you. If you have a terminal illness, the app is great for you to get down right now videos of you leaving memos to your loved ones while you can. So many uses, many important uses. So thanks again for helping spread the word out there of this little passion project of mine. And I'll keep you posted on the Spirit Park, which is the next big project to try and manifest.
Well, that's incredible. Thank you so much for creating it and creating that space for people. And I think it's amazing that it exists. Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you. If people would like to connect and learn more about you, where would they go?
So they could reach me through the Love Notes website, which is lovenotes.club, C-L-U-B, and there's a link to email me from there, so I'm happy to answer any questions people might have. And at the bottom of the website, there are 2 links, one for Spirit Park, so if you want to learn more about my idea for this reimagined cemetery, there are videos that walk you through a presentation on it. There's also a link to a symposium I ran a couple of years ago over COVID, where I invited 10 professionals in the fields of death, grief, and memorialization to come on the symposium. And what I was interested in were professionals who, like me, were not satisfied with the current models in our culture. And these are people who are doing things differently that are better. And so I said, come on the symposium, tell us what you didn't like in your field, hospice workers, and we had morticians, and we had cemetery directors all come on, and they say, these are the things that weren't working that I saw, and this is what I did differently to make it better, and here's what we're doing now, and here's how people are reacting to it in a better way. So all 10 presentations are videoed, and you're welcome to watch any of the 10 at your leisure and learn to see what people at the cutting edge of trying to make our relationship with death and dying better, what they're doing. It's fascinating. I hope to do another one in the near future. So if that's a topic of interest, that's there at the bottom of the Love Notes website for you to also enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you, Irina. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.